Hello and welcome once again to Speakeasy. I am still Paul F. Tompkins. My guest today is an actor whose credits include everything you've ever seen. Most recently, nominated for an Emmy as Mike Ehrmantraut on the AMC series Breaking Bad. Please say hello to Jonathan Banks. Jonathan, I will say hello to you right now.
Hello, Paul.
Cheers. Thank you so much for being
Salud.
here. Very nice indeed. Little vodka tonic in the afternoon.
Yes, it's very civilized, Paul.
It's very civilized.
Probably because you're from Philadelphia, you recognize that.
That's right.
Very civilized people in Philadelphia.
Well, you grew up in Washington, right? D.C.?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
That would be a great sports rival
Right.
of Philadelphia.
That's correct.
And a Washington Redskins fan, and you wouldn't, but you know, we got to change the name, dude. Even if there are two American Indians out there that don't want to be called Redskins, we got to just change the name.
There's more. Do you feel like that's gathering steam, that movement?
It should.
There's more and more talk about that
It should.
lately.
If somebody's offended by it, you know, then,
Yeah.
then change it.
It's not
Just
asking
change
too
it. It's
much.
not that big a deal.
Yeah, but that's when people get into that argument about heritage, where it's our heritage to use this word about those people.
Well, there are a lot of other words that there's some people who would say that's our heritage
Indeed.
to use that word.
I'm sure I don't know who you
Yeah,
mean.
no, I have no idea.
So you grew up in D.C. Was that the first time you ever set foot on a stage? Was that in Washington, D.C.?
First time I ever sat down in a theater was in Washington, D.C. I think my first real influence of who I wanted to do something was either watching Donald O'Connor do Singing in the Rain when he was falling over the couch with the doll or whatever.
Right.
And I would then tear up the furniture and do pratfalls from as far up as I could. And
Another influence you said was Anthony Quinn, right? Zorba
Yeah.
the Greek?
yeah.
How old were you when you saw that?
By that time, I was probably 16, 17, 18 years old.
Right.
But I didn't necessarily grow up in the Garden District in Washington, D.C.
Right.
There were not a lot. Not a lot of us thought we were going to go to college. We were somewhat trapped in an environment about what life had been designed and where it was going to go. And all of a sudden, so anyway, it's a long-winded way of saying you go to see Anthony Quinn in Zorba the Greek, and I thought, and there was Alan Bates, and it was about travel in the Greek islands. And Quinn with all his heart and all the dance of life and how well he treated the old prostitute that was dying and how beautiful he told her she was. And I thought, I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. But it really did. I thought all I want to do is travel. And eventually I did. I went all over the Greek islands by myself, getting on ferries in the middle of the night with a gypsy who was screaming and spitting and yelling at his wife and animals and sleeping on rooftops in Naxos that were, and that's relative because they had a beautiful grape arbor and a shower up there and you looked out at the night sky. It was great.
You've worked on so many different things. You came to Los Angeles in 1974, and you did some theater and television and everything. And your big break, the biggest break probably was Wise Guy.
Wise Guy or Beverly Hills Cop?
Beverly Hills Cop. You were in two Eddie Murphys. You did 48 Hours and Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Beverly Hills Cop was that a thing that people were stopping you on the street and pointing at you like?
Yeah, it was kind of weird
Yeah.
because you're never ever prepared for that, and
That movie
you
was
haven't.
huge.
And it was huge. Yeah. People coming up to you and going, "Hey, cuz," you know. And
So Wise Guy was a show that ran for 4 seasons, yes?
3.5.
3.5. It was ahead of its time, I think, in a lot of ways. The way the storytelling that they were doing, and it was very layered and very interesting. Like the characters on that show were, in addition to Frank McPike, I think Kevin Spacey played part of an incestuous brother and sister team at some
With
point.
Joan Severance.
Yeah, it was. I remember watching that show and just having that feeling of like there's nothing else like this on television. Obviously, it's a big break career-wise, but creatively, were you aware right away? Oh, this is something that's different. This is interesting.
I'm not. And the pause tells it all. I would say no, but I certainly became aware.
Right.
And they were so good to write to my character, Mike Pike, and then I really liked McPike. He was great, but he was a character that was hard to shake off at night because you're working up there in the rain. We did a lot of nights, and to walk into that elevator at night, and with the you wanted to dress a little nicer. You wanted to get out of it. You wanted to be away from it.
And that was your first Emmy nomination.
Mm-hmm. Like I've had so many.
Right. You've had more than one?
One every 24 years. Just
like clockwork.
Clockwork.
Absolutely. You are a grandfather, much like Mike Ehrmantraut. Maybe not much like Mike Ehrmantraut, but you are both grandfathers. But a devoted grandfather. Mike is very devoted to his granddaughter. Tries to provide for her as much as he possibly can in his line of work.
Yes.
Was that something that you absolutely related to, that side of Mike? Because it's
Yeah.
You don't doubt it for a second when you see it.
No, I think Mike thought that the only decent part of him that he had left was the connection to the granddaughter.
Mm-hmm. What we've seen of early on in Mike's story, I think it's in the episode Half Measures, where you have that speech you give to Bryan Cranston about when you used to be a cop and the domestic abuse case, this guy just wouldn't stop doing it. And it's an amazing speech, and I think it was the most you'd spoken on the show up to that point. Mike was he was a man of very few words up until that point. And then you hear that speech and you feel like, I know everything about this guy now. I know how he ended up here because of that. You debuted at the end of the second season, I believe. Did you watch the first season before you got the job?
Before I got the job, no. I came in, I did it, and Brian said to me, would you like to see what it's all about? And gave me a DVD. And I went, yeah, all right. I mean, okay. And then I watched it, and I went, wow, this is really good. But I will tell you, you coming in there and thinking I'm going in, I'll do a job, and I'm on the way out. I go in, I slap Aaron around a little bit, Jesse. And I came home and I said to my wife, I said, I think I just work with a kid that is great. When I encounter him, I say, okay, let's go, to get him inside. And he's sitting there in a t-shirt shaking. And Aaron was into it by the time I got there. But he was surprised when I reached up and slapped the piss out of him. And, I mean, I didn't hurt him. He whines about it to this day. But
little crying wolf.
And with that, let's have another drink.
I mean, it's an amazing cast, and everybody seems up for whatever challenge comes along. And so when you came on board, how surprised were you reading those scripts?
I do believe this about even great scripts. It's the execution that what you finally see on film, and then you go, yeah. Because it can be a great script, and if you don't have Michael Slovis shooting it with the perspective of the fly or the wheel or whatever. But yeah, there are points in it where I go, oh, Jesus, I didn't know that was going to happen,
When you've talked about the show, you've done other interviews, have you experienced people being upset because you were giving knowledge of stuff that had happened on the show, that had broadcast?
Paul, I honest to God don't tell people anything. In interviews, I go, no, I'm not going to tell you that because blah, 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 blah.
Well, but even about stuff that had happened already, that had been on the air?
I do talk about, if somebody says something about the half-measure speech, then I'll say, because that is what? That's season 3, in the middle of season 3 or something?
Right.
Come on, you got to move along here.
This is what I'm saying, John.
I understand.
This is what I'm saying.
I understand.
Mike, at a certain point, is no longer on the show. Now, how far in advance did you know that Mike would no longer be on the show?
So Gilligan, it's Aaron's engagement party. We're up in the Hollywood Hills, in Vince, and only Vince's style. He's talking to Aaron's future father-in-law, and he's going, and I know that they haven't made my deal at Sony yet, and they're doing whatever's going on, and I'm going, what's going to go on? What's happening here? And he's talking to Aaron's father-in-law about the hors d'oeuvres. They're really great. They're really, and I went, and the two of them are standing there, and I went, How about, motherfucker, we talk about my future, for Christ's sakes? And it was about then where, he said, well,
Oh no!
well.
But it was a pretty amazing send off, and of course beautifully shot. Like that last scene, which is the last scene of the show, is gorgeous.
But let me tell you, and without, it's not blowing smoke. Michael Slovis, it's you should just let Michael Slovis, you should give him a script and just let him do anything. Because you got to realize what he was under the pressure. Because we're talking about something, and I think what you forget about in Breaking Bad, we are still working under a time element that's going like that. Tom Schnoz, who was directing and had written that episode, and Brian are discussing something between the two of them that is really relevant to Walter White's character. The light is going. And I'm going, excuse the language again, motherfuckers, it's time for me to die. You want to give me a little space here? I got to die.
Right.
And Slovis, without me knowing it, and we're really losing light, took a camera and went up to the top of that hill and shot down. I was only aware of the camera that was stage right. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that he was up on the hill. And that distant slump is, without Michael, how cool was that?
It was amazing.
It was really good. Now, I have a question, Paul.
Yes, sir.
Are we a drink for God's sake?
I'm very sorry. I do apologize. Did you just wrap Bullet with Danny Trejo?
No, that was done a few months ago.
Oh, a few months ago,
A couple
okay.
months ago. Danny.
What do you?
Danny.
Who also appeared on
Did
Breaking
you see?
Bad?
Because this is very funny. Danny on a turtle's back with his head. There's this glossy Malibu magazine, right, that they put out there, and it's whoever it is. I mean, because if I say a name, I'm going to hurt somebody's feelings. But it's generally not heavy duty. I just redid my kitchen. We're putting our kids in the school for suckers that cost $70,000 a year, whatever it is. They do an article with Danny, who's done double digits at most prisons in California. And Danny's thing is, yeah, well, you better stab him before he stabs you. You gotta know your turf here. Danny plays the good guy, and I play the bad guy, with good being relative, because somebody gets shot every 5 feet.
Right.
But the funny thing was, Danny, I think, is a year older than I am, so he's 68. Mm-hmm. When we would get out of the van, because I don't have any knees, Danny would put his hand out, and then the old fella would get down, and then we would go be badasses. You know what? Really bad. But I had to run across a rooftop, and my knees really are shot. I got hit by a car a long time ago. And I'm running across a rooftop, and the knee goes, and I go, and the roof is over there, It's
So
like
the momentum is carrying you to the edge.
Oh God, I had such a good time.
What is Bullet about?
Violence. And let me be more succinct.
Please, because I think, could you dumb it down for me?
Yeah, I could. Violence.
There we go.
Okay.
You also have turned up on Parks and Recreation, playing Adam Scott's character, Ben Wyatt's father. Had it been a while since you had done a sitcom appearance before Parks and Rec?
What did I do? I played Ed O'Neill's brother in
Modern Family.
Modern Family.
That's right.
And Ed and I go way back. But, Ed had a tryout for the Pittsburgh Steelers 1,000 years ago. Ed,
Oh, really?
yeah, it's formidable. Right. And now he's just old and whatever. But we walked in there, and there's that thing where we're ragging on each other, and I come through the door, and I went, and he gets me in a headlock, and we go down, and we fall on the floor. Well, we weren't supposed to fall on the floor, and that's a stage floor. Oh. And it's worse, as bad as this right here. And we went over, and I came down right on top of him, on his hip. You could have heard a pin drop, you know, and they went, cut, 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 cut. And there was silence, and we immediately were going, medic, 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 medic. And Ed wasn't screaming for it. 2 days later, now my rib is sore. And 2 days later, he comes in and he says, "Here, let me show you something." And it is yellow and purple all the way down the side. It's a miracle he didn't break his hip.
Because that's like pretty much a cement
It's a miracle.
floor.
It's a cement floor. It's a miracle we didn't break his hip. And it's still, they kept the cut. So if you see it, the lamp gets knocked over, we go to the floor.
To be fair, it's a miracle you didn't break his hip.
Yeah, that's right. I just fell down to make him feel more comfortable. Okay?
Exactly. Was Parks and Rec, has that been an enjoyable thing to do? It's a pretty amazing cast, really funny people.
It's really funny. And I'm about to do the last year of Community.
Oh, right. Can you say what you're playing, or is that top secret at this point?
No, it's not top secret. I'm a professor with a military background, a police background maybe, and you're never quite sure where he's from. And, because I'm so fucking funny. And,
so did you not, when you were starting out, did you just think it was going to be drama all the way? Or were you surprised when you kept getting these things?
I thought it was probably just going to be poverty all the way. I mean, but I went, what else am I going to do?
Right.
I got to make a child support payment.
Right.
Whose phone is that?
I can't even imagine.
It sounds like it's on me.
It might be closer than you think.
We'll just ignore it.
You can feel free to take that call.
It's down by my crotch.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this edition of Speakeasy. My thanks to Jonathan Banks. Thank you so much. What a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you for joining us here. Absolutely. Be sure to watch Breaking Bad along with Jonathan Banks on AMC. That does it for this time. We will see you next time when my guest will be a different person.
Bye. Kids, you get to go home. All right, will you quit falling asleep over there, for Christ's sakes, and get up and get out of here.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and check back every Monday to see who I interview next. And for more info about Speakeasy, visit mademan.com.